Just connecting to
I think it's connected now.
Whose iPhone? Speak. No, it's good.
That's me. It's Ronnie. Am I on the right?
There we go. There we
Hey,
go.
Ronnie, how's it going?
What's going on, guys?
Yeah.
How's it going? Hey, I got the camera off because I've got a COVID-19 beard going on.
It's all good.
I can't see you. That sucks.
I'm renaming you. Ronnie Ramos.
Put a mask on, Ronnie.
What's going on, guys? Nice to see all you guys.
Good to see you.
Hey.
Hi.
It's been
Nice
years,
to finally
Ronnie.
see you.
It's been years.
I know it has. How many
right,
people
let's
we
see.
got on?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
11?
6, 7, 8, 10. Yeah, 11. 11 people.
Yep.
It's a
Nice.
good turnout.
Oh my God! Listen, all this time, Jordan, you've been talking all this time, and I was like, "Yeah, it's been years. It's been years." I didn't even recognize you. I'm looking at you right now. You're a grown man now. Holy
Yeah,
crap.
it's been a long time.
Yeah,
It's been a long time.
recognize you. Nice to see you, brother.
Nice to see you too. Well, yeah, let's get started. First of all, we want to do this. We want to upload this up to YouTube. We know Great Light Studios is doing something like this, but they're more focusing on like the doctrine side of things. But I see we have like a plethora of former members here and also family members who have been affected by the activities of this cult. So basically we want to give like a different point of view of not just, some doctrine based, but also how this cult has affected our lives as former members and also, family members alike as well. So, if everyone wants to introduce themselves, I guess I'll start. My name is Jordan. You guys, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you guys see my videos or, but you guys know my story. I was a member for 15 years. I've been out for about a year and a half, and now I'm living a happy life, out of this cult, going to school and, just living my life with my wife and my son. Thankfully, they're out as well. So that's pretty much a brief explanation that I can give about myself. Let's see who's next. Michelle, you want to go?
Sure. Hi, my name is Michele Colon.
Congratulations.
So I was back in 2009 and was kicked out in 2011, sued by the church twice for defamation for the examining site. I think maybe some of you are aware of the story already. And as a result, my husband at the time divorced me because the cult put pressure on him, convinced him I was the devil, etc. So he divorced me. They married him off to someone else who needed her citizenship, and I haven't heard from him since 2011. The 2 court cases that the cult had against me for defamation were both dismissed ultimately after 3 years of litigation. And now I'm in litigation with them. There are 2 pending cases. So since 2011 till now, I've been in litigation with them all this time pretty much. That's about it.
There we go. Up next, Kelsey.
Yeah, so my name is Kelsey. I was a member of the group for 10 years, from 2007 to 2017. I left 2 years ago, and like you said, Jordan, living life and doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
Without having to ask permission.
Yeah. Let's see who else. Ronnie.
So I was in the church. My name is Ron, of course. I was in the church from 1999 to 2011. It was 11, yeah, mid-11.
Yeah.
So I got baptized in the church in 99. My sister Tammy was going. She was super excited about hearing about the mother. She kept calling me. I used to call her. I'm going quick over this, so I don't take too much time.
Go ahead.
So I used to call her church lady because I thought she was a fanatic with this church. So I finally went, got baptized, and everyone knows my story. I went to Korea 3 times and all that jazz. But anyway, since being out, I did leave in 2011 because the church was doing some drastic changes. They had structured youth groups at the time, and the youth groups were pretty militant. They were getting real militant. I was pretty laid back in the church. At least I think I was, wasn't I, Jordan? I thought I was kind of a laid back.
Kind of.
Yeah. Compared to the strict
Yeah,
ones that were coming up.
compared to we have pool parties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Diane Sims pool, that's right. So I ended up mainly I got out because I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, okay. Mainly I got out because I just had a disagreement with Pastor John. I guess I'll say it briefly like that. Thought his sermons were a little bit harsh, and members were coming to tell me about it, and they were afraid to go to Pastor John. So I finally said, all right, well, I'll talk to him. I said, told him about his sermons, if he was okay. I asked, his sermons are kind of negative. So after that, he called me in the office the next day, and he said, oh, missionary, I'm going to make you a deacon now. So I was like, that's fine, Pastor. I said, it's not about the titles for me. It never was. So after that, I just took a break for a week or two. I saw that as a power play, like in a government structure or something a little corrupt. So ended up taking a break, and that's when I found out about the false mother in Korea and all that. Just started doing research. So
Nice.
Been out ever since. Happy to be out, and happy that you guys are out too.
Nice, Ronnie. Isabella?
My name's Isabella. I was in the World Mission Society Church of God from 2010 till 2016. So I've been out for 4 years. I was a group leader there in Las Vegas, and I was in Riverside for a little in Seattle. But I left, not because I was researching the church, but I just started seeing lies and contradictions in the church, and I couldn't get a straight answer when I would question it. So I decided to leave. And since I've left, I feel a lot happier. I don't have anxiety anymore. I don't feel scared. And I feel like I am finally living my life how I want to live it.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Let's see. Who else? Heather, you're going to go last since you're going to share your testimony. Let's see. Chelsea, you got your...
Yeah, I'm here.
You recently left, so...
I'm Chelsea. So I was a former member from 2018 on and off till about 2 days ago. I finally blocked.
Congratulations!
Yeah.
Wow, there we go.
Finally blocked the woman who was like stalking me to come to Bible study. And yeah, that's about it.
Nice. Josue, give a little. I mean.
So I'm not a member. This actually has affected a friendship I had a long time ago with a buddy of mine named Renzo. Invited to his house, him and his mom bombarded me with videos, and after maybe 1 or 2 talks, trying to chop it up, he just forced it, and I said, "Look, we're gonna have to go our own ways." And then recently, my wife gets approached 3 to 4 times when she goes off on Saturdays to Target or Walmart. And I'm just like, well, let me go ahead and use my microphone and whatnot to give people who are former members a voice to speak against the church and the things they've done.
Nice.
All
right, now to our first star of the show, Heather. First coming out and sharing her testimony. She has she's shared a lot with me personally, about what she's gone through. So yeah, take the mic.
Hey guys, my name's Heather Ledesma. I was baptized in 2010 in San Diego, the main branch in San Diego. My older brother, he was in the Navy, so he actually was preached to, and I was actually looking for a church, and he preached to me. I came, and at first I wasn't accepting, but little by little, once I did kind of more Bible studies, then I met a missionary there. And I'm going to skip over a lot because we're focusing more on relationships. So when I first was baptized, I was already planning on moving back home to Fresno, which is about 6 hours, 7 hours towards like Bakersfield area. And I was already planning on moving. I had boxes packed. I was like ready to go. I had an apartment picked out. And the missionary, she actually begged me not to move. I was trying to get out of a bad relationship because of physical abuse, emotional abuse, and just kind of unfaithfulness. So I already made up my mind. I already actually had an apartment picked out with my mom, and I gave her the deposit, and everything was good to go. And then she showed up with my brother, and they were just really forceful in just telling me to just stay, not move. There wasn't a church there at the time in Fresno. So I was really worried because I didn't want to flake out on my mom because, you know, my mom also was depending on me. But eventually it took maybe a couple hours and she convinced me not to move, even though that my relationship was just not a good relationship at all, emotionally and physically and everything like that. But I decided to just stay, and she convinced me that, you know, what if he's a member? What if he's, you know, a brother? So that kind of made me feel guilty. I didn't want him to lose out on his salvation. So I ended up staying, and I ended up just unpacking my things and flaking on my mom and apologizing. And eventually he came to study, and he actually didn't believe, even though he studied. But the missionary there actually told him to just get baptized for my sake, even though he didn't believe. So, you know, he got baptized, even though he didn't believe, and even though he wasn't really into the doctrine, he got baptized for my sake. And later on, maybe a couple years in, we just were not doing well. Still nothing changed. So I actually had to ask permission to the leadership, to my missionary, to leave him. And permission was granted. And so she found me a place, the missionary found me a place to stay with a sister, and she was a single mom. So we were roommates, and then actually she was really involved with my personal life, with you know, getting child support, with, you know, setting up everything. But now when I look back, I just feel like they wanted me to remain in that relationship because he was military, and he was making a lot of money. And in my experience and from what I feel, I wonder, you know, maybe if that was the reason why, because I wasn't making money. It was just mostly he was giving me the tithes to give to the church at the time. But eventually, you know, the missionary, she kind of walked me through the process and made sure I got child support, and even went as far as, you know, telling me to contact his command to make sure that I got everything I needed. So she was really into my personal life, I noticed. And eventually we ended up divorcing. And maybe a year later, maybe two, she introduced me to someone. She sat me down and asked me what I thought about this brother, kind of pointing to him from afar. And I told her that I didn't find him attractive at all, and that I'm not interested. And so this was while we were in the sanctuary. Nobody was really in the sanctuary. It was like in between services. And she rebuked me, and she told me that I'm shallow, and that I don't deserve a good husband, and that I'm a sinner, and that, you know, I don't deserve to be treated right. And if I did have a good husband, then I would probably fall away from the truth. And she just made me feel, I don't know what the proper word is, but I just felt really guilty, and I felt like I had to obey my leader, and I had to, you know, follow what she was instructing me. So eventually I did end up marrying this brother. I did ask, though, to make sure that he was in a leadership position, because at the time I was a unit leader, and she assured me that he was on his way to being an assistant unit leader. And so when we got married, probably a month later, he started missing service, and I just saw like he wasn't really active in the church as what it was made out to be. So later on, I kind of brought this up to my missionary, and I wasn't really happy in the marriage. And so I told her what was on my mind. I told her, you know, I'm not happy. This is what was told, and I don't feel like he's active. So I'm really looking into, you know, divorcing. I'm just not happy. And there's a little more personal things that went into it. Like he brought bed bugs into our home. He just wasn't like someone who was a husband. He was just more like a roommate. I mean, I barely knew him. And so I got rebuked for saying that I wanted to divorce him. She kind of grabbed me by my elbow and pulled me into a study room. And she just went hardcore, you know, rebuking me, just kind of like, you know, you're a sinner, you know, who do you think you are? How dare you, you know, you took a promise before father and mother, you know. So it was really hardcore rebuking that I've never really felt before between her and I. So I went home and, you know, I just felt at a loss. Like I didn't know what to do. I just, I don't know. I waited probably another month, and I asked again. But I kind of didn't ask about a divorce. I just asked to separate him. I asked to move out. And I kind of used the bed bugs as a leverage, kind of saying, you know, he doesn't care about them. He keeps bringing them into my home. I have a child. You know, I don't want that in my home. So she finally gave me the okay to move out. And so later on, eventually, I was able to get permission. At this time, I moved to a different branch. I moved to Escondido branch. So at this time, I got permission from that leader to move on with the divorce. And this missionary at this new branch, Escondido, he was constantly asking me, you know, about the divorce. He was like, are you done with the divorce? Are you done? You know, let me know when you're done. Kind of rushing almost. And so eventually I was done. And then as soon as I was done, he asked me if I was interested in this brother. And I said, no, I had a bad experience with marriage, you know, from my past relationship, and I don't want to do this again. And I told him I'm not interested. And I actually, because he was kind of asking me again, I took that as an opportunity to tell him, you know, next time I want to choose who I want to marry. And still he insisted on the brother, and he actually paired us up preaching. And so it was really awkward. We had to preach together, and I'm pretty sure he also was informed about me too. And it was just so awkward. And we went preaching together. And then later, after preaching, the leader asked me again, the missionary there, he asked me how I felt about him. I said, no, I'm not interested. And then I said, well, what about this brother? And this brother was actually my fruit. And he was someone that I actually knew because I worked with him. And eventually we ended up getting married, and I'm still married with him. And even after I left, I mean, me and him left together, and we're happily married, and that's that. And I don't want to take too much time, but I did want to, since we're talking about relationships, I wanted to mention my brother also. My brother, so my last service was 2019, so it's still kind of fresh. Like this Passover is the first Passover I missed, but my brother is still in. And I haven't heard from him in a year. I was looking for him, and I even asked some leaders in the church in Escondido to ask San Diego where he's at, and they told me they hadn't seen him for a while. And so I got worried. I was searching for him. I posted him on missing persons in San Diego, and I brought my mom down. My mom hasn't spoken to my brother since he was baptized. Like, he just doesn't talk to my family at all. I did every now and then, being in the church, but my brother just He didn't. And so eventually my family and I found him, and he was homeless and he was living in a field. And I asked him, did anyone at the church know where you were? Did anyone know that you were homeless? And he said that a brother used to sneak him into the gym to shower. So that made me feel like, okay, then obviously this brother was a leader. He most likely knew that my brother was homeless, but nobody felt to mention that to me. Nobody felt to contact me. I was specifically asking the church where he was. Nobody informed me. So we ended up moving him into my mom's place. Long story short, he ended up moving back, and he's back in San Diego, and he's back in the field. And I actually have text messages to show that the pastor there told him to not come back because he's homeless. He needs to get back on his feet, and then he will be able to return to the church. So, you know, that relationship is kind of, my brother knows that I'm not going. He's once in a while does speak to me, but I did let him know, you know, that's not something that, you know, ask yourself, what would Jesus do, right? Like, he was around the homeless, he was around the prostitutes, he was around the tax collectors. If you just read the Bible, it shows you that God has compassion on everyone. God has compassion on the homeless. And I feel like it's just complete opposite. Like, why would you deny salvation because someone is homeless? And so that's just, I just wanted to keep my story a little short. I'm just going to wrap it up. Maybe later on I'll make another video to kind of speak more in detail. But in regards to relationship, that's kind of my experience in the World Mission Society Church of God.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, we can all agree here that, you know, characteristics like that, especially towards your brother and how they handled your previous marriages, not a way that a regular church, you know, should handle, you know, something like that. What are the rest of you guys' thoughts? I mean,
and how many times you had to ask for permission?
Yeah.
I don't know how many times you mentioned that you had to ask for permission.
Yeah, permission.
To divorce? I probably asked about 3 times, but in between there, I was counseled, I was rebuked, I was just, you know, basically ashamed for my feelings, even though I didn't even want the marriage in the first place. I told him straight up I didn't like him, and I was kind of made to feel guilty.
Heather, I got a quick question, Jordan, if I can jump in real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have 3 quick points that I wanted to just point out. Did you say you got married multiple times in the church, that they married you to multiple people, like more than one or just one?
So I would say twice, but the second one, I made the decision on who it was.
Okay, gotcha. So that's interesting. Let's take note of that. That's pretty interesting, because just to marry someone over and over like that, they never used to do that, actually. And the other thing is, they never they didn't get involved. I don't know if you remember, Jordan, but we didn't really get involved much in the early days in personal lives as much as they do now. I mean, they're heavily into personal lives. And the third point that I just wanted to make is, I remember, if you remember, Jordan, and a few, the rest of you guys also, but in early days when we first started the church, it was like everyone was given a position, and I never understood it. I just thought it was kind of a nice thing. Everyone could feel like they're doing a part. But even if it was like in charge, Jordan's in charge of the picking up the rakes, and so-and-so's in charge of picking up the shovels, things that didn't even need to have positions on them and separated, they would do that. And that's interesting that it just feels like they do the same thing now, but at a higher level, like giving them positions to keep them, you know, in the church. I just thought that was interesting how many positions are handed out all the time now.
Yeah, they do have a way. Go ahead, Jose. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like 2 questions on that, because I found a lot of the things that you said and how they responded to be is totally radical. So does the church care about the state of the marriage as much as they care about, well, he's just a believer?
No.
Yeah, I think that's unanimous.
Okay. So the other thing was because it seemed like the church has a lot of selective listening, and is there such thing as restricted and unrestricted reporting, when you share information, does it seem to leak out throughout the church, or are there information the church ought not to share, but they still do it?
Like if I confide in my missionary, are you saying do they share outside
Yeah.
from the? Yes, definitely.
Oh wow.
100%.
That's crazy.
Yes.
'Cause you shouldn't do that.
100%.
Oh,
We're told
man.
to. We're told to. I mean, even like Saturday after the evening service, when most people have gone, is the leaders have like a, I don't know about you guys' Zion's, but mine, they met after everybody left, and we had to talk about every single person, what they did, who didn't show up, why didn't they show up, what was
That's
so and so
across the
doing
board,
when they were
yeah.
seen talking to this person. Yeah, we have to snitch.
Yeah, it's a huge gossip session, really.
That's so Christ-like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was after the Sabbath day. It'd be like after everyone's gone, like it was like 11 midnight sometimes. And then all the group leaders would have to get together in a room, and we'd have to basically tell on our groups to the leaders there. Like, and if a group leader didn't say anything, they're like, why don't you say anything? What's going on with your group? Is your group perfect? Like, so like we're basically like encouraged to snitch on other people.
No, I mean, at that point, you wouldn't even want to share information to anybody else, right?
Right?
No, you knew who you could talk to and who you couldn't. You knew.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of weird because back in the older ages for Catholics, that's what they use communion for, in order for the priest or the pope to know what's going on in their church and in their, town. So it's weird they talk so much about the Catholic Church, but they have their own way of doing exactly what the Catholic Church was doing. So
Yeah.
I don't get it.
They have a huge way of, excluding somebody from a group, or like what Isabella said and Kelsey, like, we had those meetings, a couple times a week, just a huge gossip session, about what's going on with the members, why so-and-so's not going preaching, why so-and-so is not tithing, why so-and-so is not attending, so it's just.
And Jordan, didn't you have to count people's tithes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did
do.
too.
I have I actually have I'm gonna pull it up here. I have a spreadsheet. I have an example of a spreadsheet that I was sent to by a missionary. Let me pull it up really quick. I'm gonna screen share. I'm gonna try this out real quick.
Spill the tea.
I'm just wing it. I'm gonna wing it. Let's see. Can you guys? Oh, wait, hold on.
It's loading.
Can you guys see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Let me try to zoom in a little bit.
I'm actually able to zoom in myself too.
Oh, nice. All right, so we have this spreadsheet to fill out, and then we had to make a PowerPoint file, and like basically in accordance with what we filled out here, and basically it's attendance. We have to mark down the October. Like, this is October 2017. What was the result of who attended 1 or more times, who attended 15 or more times, and then who was in course 1, course 2, course 3, like the 5 sermon books. Who were the evangelists who were going preaching 1 to 3 times a month, who were going 8+ times a month, and then who was tithing. So I had to circle right. I had to mark down who was tithing and who wasn't tithing. How would I know? How would I know who,
You don't, unless they put their name on it, and then it's almost like, why would you want to know how much you're tithing?
Exactly. And so when I first got this, I was like, hold on, am I supposed to look into the envelope? I asked one of the deacons who was a leader, fellow leader. I was like, all right, how am I supposed to know and find out if they're tithing? He was like, oh, you just look in their envelopes. And I'm like, wait, hold on, wait. I have to do what? Oh, you just got to look in their envelopes. I'm like, all right. It was so awkward.
Josue, they do have envelopes with the member's name on them already, and they're on the wall, so that's how you know who's whose.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
Even the babies have one.
Yeah, the babies
like,
have one too.
Like I'm talking like I'm not talking toddlers. I'm talking toddlers, but babies, like
Newborns.
like 9-month-old babies. They have.
I remember. I think it was you actually who told me, Kelsey, that they look at your occupation, and so they kind of base your tithing on the job title you have.
Yeah, because they know if you're like an accountant that you're gonna have a higher tithe than some works at like Safeway. Like they know kind of how to tell who's giving their full amount rather than just half of their amount or a portion of it.
Yeah.
And also, if you're
For sure.
consistently, you have to give it at least every 2 weeks. So if you're giving like consistently $200 every 2 weeks, and then 1 week you give 150, they know something's up.
That happened with me, and they made me do the tithe study over again because they noticed that the amount of money I was giving went down. And I asked, I was like, I did this study already. Why do I need to do it again? And they're like, well, you do a study twice, you may gain better understanding, whatever that means. And then I kind of put it together. I'm like, okay, so this is because I gave less money last.
Gotta make up.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, like the amount of control that goes into it. I mean, you just
so I know that
I
also know that a lot of the mastermind manipulators, when it comes within the church or cult per se, they tend to use scripture per se to kind of enforce it in you. Was there anything that was say from the Bible that would kind of make you feel, okay, I have to give more?
They say because you're Malachi, if you're not tithing, you're robbing God.
Yep.
Yeah, they use that verse in Malachi.
And you're not returning to it's in Malachi chapter 4, chapter 3, verse 7 through like 12. It talks about that if you don't tithe, you're robbing God, and you can also not return to God, because they also teach there's only 2 ways to return to God. One is through Passover, and the other is through tithing. So meaning if you don't tithe, you cannot go to heaven.
So, okay, so with that being said, just going off a small little tangent, 2 Corinthians talks about giving out of a joyful heart. What do they say about that? And not
they say that you have to have a joyful heart when you give. So
Your
like, for
tithes.
example, like they use the example that like I can give you $5, Josue, and I can say, okay, here's my last $5. This is like my last $5, but I guess you can have it. You don't want it, right? Because I kind of like through my tone, I kind of made like it feel like a burden, right? Or I can say, oh no, Josue, I want you to have these $5. Like you're such a good friend or something like that. It depends on how you word it and how you act when you give it. That's what they're talking about. So when we tithe, if we tithe saying like, oh, I have to give this money. I don't have this money to give, but I have to give this money because the church is saying it, then that's not having a cheerful mind. You need to say, hey, you need to have the mind that I want to give this to God because God has done all these things for me. So I want to give this to God in return. So it has nothing to do with I mean, you still have to do it, but they're saying you basically have to be happy about doing it.
Right, but I think just to expand a little bit, it says here in 2 Corinthians 9:7, each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion. So
yeah, it's completely under compulsion. It's completely in their tithe study. They have that verse that they make us show people. Like so, but we emphasize not the compulsion. We emphasize the cheerful heart.
Gotcha. Ronnie wants to say something real quick.
Yeah, and coming from just to go a little bit deeper with that, because we have to understand the function of a cult and function of mind control. Because when you go into this, they teach you what love is. They teach you what a cheerful heart is. So everything that we thought about love, we didn't truly understand about love. They had to show us what God's love meant. So everything was kind of, you got to understand the first thing that they do is they change your thinking. How you think about things was wrong. So it's very easy to start accepting things, just like when I had learned about God's love is different than man's love. So I would think, going to pick up a brother, giving him a ride, doing physical things, but they would explain, no, that's a different kind of love. So when they get that kind of mind control, then it doesn't matter what they show anymore after that. You're just following at that point. Okay. And that's the real issue. That's the real problem with it.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
To build on what Ronnie said, I remember when they told my teenage son that this was the pastor, Don Lee, that told him this, pulled him over to the side. And I was there, we were walking together towards the sanctuary. And he told my son that I was no longer his mother, that now I was his sister. Now that we were in the church.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen that been said to mothers with babies too. Like they'll like rebuke them, saying like, don't look at that baby like your child. That's not your child. That's your brother. That's your sister, you know. And I was looking back at it now, I'm like, that's so surprising to
So
see
weird.
them. Yeah.
Redesignating your family to you. Redesignating.
Yeah.
Mind
Right.
control.
It's also making those people less important, right?
That's
Right.
That's right.
You-
Because they don't
Absolutely.
want you to, like, what they would say, like, don't make your baby your idol, is what they were trying to say. Like, don't put God, you have to put God before that baby.
And
Or the church before the
your physical father and mother become less important. To just touch base again what Michelle was
Yeah.
saying. That's so important, because then you
Mhm.
don't have to follow them or listen to them anymore, and they're
Right.
the ones who you should follow the most and listen to. They have your best interest.
Right. And all of your friends who say anything negative about the church, that's Satan using them to try to take you away from the church. They basically redefine everyone in your life. And then, you know, this isn't the only cult that encourages their members to call the leader by father or mother. And that's to have you regress to that childhood mentality of, you know, you do what your parents tell you to do without questioning, right? Because that's what you do when you're a child. So they put you back in that mindset so that you're easier to control and manipulate.
Absolutely.
I think it has a lot to do with like Korean culture too. I don't know,
Absolutely.
like Kelsey, you're familiar with Korean culture pretty much. Like, I know, like in their, even like in a workspace environment, they're really submissive to their leadership, aren't they?
Yeah, you have to use it. There's like a certain tense in the language that you have to use when addressing like a boss or a higher up, as opposed to just like regular standard talk. I mean, standard talk, there's like how do I say, like different levels, like different words to say. Like for example, like Ronnie, you're older than me, right? So I wouldn't talk to you in the same tense that I would talk to Jordan. But in a workplace, Ronnie, if you were the or say in the workplace, if Michelle, you were my boss and you were higher up than Ronnie, then I would talk to you with more respect than Ronnie, even though Ronnie's probably older than you.
Right, like Nim, like when you call Nim in Korean.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With more respect or whatever, huh?
Mhm.
It's like Kelsey's having some difficulties.
You're breaking up, Kelsey.
Yeah, that happens.
It's a lot
No
different in the
worries.
work. Can you hear me now?
Like a robot.
Is it still breaking up?
All right, I can hear you.
Now it's good.
Sorry, guys. Oh, you can hear now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I'll let you guys talk.
But I feel like they put their Korean culture a lot into the church. I don't know, for those of you former members, you can see, like, for one example, I remember going to a wedding before, when they used to have weddings inside the church. Instead of like kiss a bride, they bowed to each other, and I was like, oh, that's weird.
Was that Cecil? Were you talking about Cecil?
Oh yeah, yeah. I thought that was so weird. It was just, but it was very evident that that Korean culture was really input into the church's culture. And I remember speaking to one deacon before, and he was like, yeah, like Korean culture is the closest culture that resembles heavenly culture. He told me that directly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was kind of weirded out, like, okay. All right.
And if I could just jump for a quick minute and jump back to the parenting as the parent of a member. I was actually told I did not bring my member into this world. God the mother who did that. Needless to say, that caused a major rift. We did for a long time. And because the grandchildren, I've kind of had to bow down and deal with that white elephant in the room. But it was, needless to say, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, whatever you want to call it. So that is just one episode that was the initial episode to tear us apart. The second one was when I was told that I was the mother and not the wife, and I had no business talking to my child. And as a result, again, we went through a period where we didn't speak. And after listening to this group, I can now attribute to where that came. So thank you for that.
All right, no worries. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you have these. I mean, of course, I don't want to be disrespectful. Of course, I mean, but you have these, Korean leaders who say, just trying to tell grown people what to do. Like we're grown people, and they're really trying to dictate, every single aspect of your life, and that includes relationships too. I mean, that includes who you talk to. They encourage you to, not make friends in the world. I'm pretty sure you've all gone through that. I mean, being discouraged to hang out with friends and family. Now they've changed it up a little bit with the damage control. But yeah, it's really sad. It's really sad how they've broken up so many relationships and families.
I think if I was part of a church like this, and they claim to have the truth, but they told me I'm restricted to hanging out with people only within the four walls of this church, and how am I supposed to share the good message? How am I able to build relationships and, I guess, spread the love of Mother God and Father? I think a lot of what they're doing is almost creating an impossible task. It's creating a chasm between me loving people and me just trying to perform in front of them. So let me talk to you about our belief. I don't care how you feel. And the moment we leave, I really don't care. I'm just going to walk off. Unless you want to join, then that's when I'll actually, I guess, express or exchange some feelings. Until then, I'm just cold and I'm going to keep moving. And I think that's a horrible approach. I think that's unloving. That could even go as far as just being cold-hearted.
Yeah, I mean, it's a conditional love for sure. Yeah. Once you stop going, or once you start disagreeing, or once you even start asking questions that make them uncomfortable, the way that they treat you completely changes. That you're treated the best when you are submissive and you just do what they tell you to do without asking any questions. So the last service I attended was called "Is Doubt a Sign of Little Faith?" And the missionary who gave the service said, those who have the greatest faith just blindly follow and don't ask any questions. And, that was a good thing. It made me feel really, really uncomfortable. So,
yeah. That reminds me of one time, we didn't have a pastor in the Las Vegas church, but he was going to come with us, and it was be my first time seeing him. And the deaconess told me, when the pastor comes, you have to obey everything he says without questioning. If he says to jump, you don't ask how high, you just jump.
Military.
Just wanted you to, and the people who obey without questioning anything, they would always be the ones that would get promotions within the church, but the people who questioned the leaders were always looked down upon or talked bad about.
Yep.
I actually wasn't allowed to get any of the members' phone numbers when I started off there. So I attended 10 of their Bible studies, and I started, getting into conversation with the other girls. And I would ask this one girl, oh, what's your phone number? If I ever have questions, I'll hit you up. Because I didn't want my leader to be my only friend at the church, So she would rush over, and all the other girls would turn silent and kind of just wait to hear what the leader had to say. And then the leader was always oh, don't worry, I'll invite you and I'll message you and let you know what's going on in our meetups. So it was weird.
That's how I was instructed to as a group leader. I would be told to not allow the members within my group to hang out, and the only person that could hang out with them outside of church was me, but only if I was to have Bible studies with them. But they would tell me, don't let them exchange numbers or hang out, and if you see it, correct them.
It's crazy.
Because they don't want them to do
start talking, right? Yeah.
So let me explain it like this, just looking at it from the other side. And because sometimes we look at this and we go, that's crazy. How would we ever have fallen for that? How did we ever get in that position to believe nonsense like that? So inside the church, what we would tell people, and it made sense to me when I was told it, so I repeated it like we all do, that we all repeated things. That's all it was. Yeah. is that don't give numbers away, because if that person takes a number from someone who has weaker faith or even a member of the church, if that person in the church isn't trained to teach her, and that's a precious soul, then if they exchange numbers, she might say something wrong about the truth or something and turn that person away. So when you hear that logic, you go, wow, that makes a lot of sense. That's a precious soul. We don't want to just, carelessly take care of it. So that's the flip side of it. That's what we got to understand. That's what's being told inside the church. And that's powerful when you think about it. How do we break that? How do we help them break that and understand that that doesn't make any sense? That what they're doing is actually doing that, but it's for an opposite effect. It's for an opposite thing they're looking for.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is crowd control, right? It's like trying to prevent a group of people from revolting against the leader, right?
Ultimately, yep.
Yeah, if one person finds something on the internet that is a big problem or something, they tell everybody because they have everybody's number, then now they have to do damage control with a bunch of people versus being able to control it and keep it small. It's easier to deal with one person having doubts than 10 or 20 of them who all get together, start talking. Perhaps they have secret meetings on the side without the leadership. That's how they would lose members. At the end of the day, I think that's the bottom line, is how do we control everybody so that we get the maximum return on our investment and lose the least amount of members possible and keep everybody in as long as possible and giving us as much money as possible. Like that's it.
Exactly. That's their main goal, and it's packaged the other way as if it's to save lives, which is very odd.
No, they're ruining lives all the time.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah.
How are they supposed to preach to 7 billion people if you can't talk to certain people and you can't text people and you have to go through leaders and you're not supposed to preach online? I don't understand any of it.
Well, they
that's a
can
good
once they're trained, so to speak, or brainwashed, or that's when they can start preaching to anyone they want.
Not
Okay.
to the homeless or disabled though.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
In my experience, yeah.
Now,
But they
please
counted
explain
the
that.
7
Please explain
billion.
that, because I need refreshing on that part.
Yeah, they're like selective, but they want to preach to everybody, but nobody I know knows about this. Like, it's not known, but they want to tell everybody, but then they don't. Like, I don't know. I'm confused. I'm very confused by all of it.
It's confusing.
Yeah, it's really confusing.
Who wants to take this one? I mean, I could tell you what I heard because I had questions about that when I was having doubts. I said, they're trying to save people. Why aren't they going? Being a nurse, why aren't they going to the hospital and trying to preach to the people who are like on their deathbeds to try to save them before they die? If they have no other way. And I wasn't really given a good answer. And then I thought about, well, what about the homeless people? Why aren't we trying to help them? And what the deaconess told me was like, those people, if we preach to them, they're going to come to the church and they're basically going to take advantage of the church and not really be here because they have faith, but just to be able to get whatever they can get from the church. I know that I've heard from other like higher ups that in their ceremony book, it says that people who are disabled are possessed by the devil. Ronnie, I don't know if you could speak to that, but.
Which book was that in, Michelle? The sermon book? Which one?
The ceremony book. That's a book that only like really.
Oh, the ceremony book. The ceremony book. I don't know if I've seen that. I'm not sure. I can't speak on that because I don't know if I've seen that in that book.
I do know that the church does say it goes hand in hand with one of their subjects called the forgiveness of sins, or the secret of the forgiveness of sins, or whatever, and they explain that the severity of someone's sin. You can basically see the severity of someone's sin by their situation down here on earth.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I remember that.
So let's say if someone's disabled or they have some type of issues, physical issues, or they were born in a poor country or something like that, they would explain in a way that, it's because they did a more severe sin in heaven. That's why they're in that particular situation, and certain circumstances that they have to go through.
Yeah, that's what
Right.
I was told too. We were supposed to be, we were preaching. I was preaching with the deacon, and there was like a apartment complex, but there was like a rail to get to the door, meaning that person was in a wheelchair. And then I was about to go there. He's like, "Don't go there." He pulled me outside. And then later on, afterwards, I'm preaching. He's like, "Oh, the reason why I told you not to go there is because he said that he heard in Korea when he went there that." That people who are disabled, or if they have like Down syndrome, or if they have disabilities, is because they sin greater in heaven. They're the intentional sinners.
Oh yeah.
So he said we shouldn't preach to them.
So if I can just share a quick passage on something that I just find like contradictory. In John 5, Jesus heals a lame man. It says, by the sheep gate in Jerusalem, there was a pool called Bathsheba, in Hebrew, which has 5 colonnades. Within the place lay a large number of the sick, blind, lame, and paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the waters. If you continue to go down, Jesus heals a man who was lame. So if Jesus confronts the layman, why isn't the church doing that very same thing?
Well, the way that I was explained that, they're like, well, nowadays we're not like healing the physical blind or the physical lame, but like the spiritual blind by opening people's eyes to the truth. And like, I can't remember what spiritual disabled meant, but that's what was explained to me.
Yeah, it was explained to me the same way as well. I mean, they take everything now in a more they explain everything more in a more spiritual sense by saying exactly that. You know, they're spiritually blind, they're spiritually lame. So our mission is to spiritually heal them with the Passover. That's their explanation.
That's such a, for me, that's such a cop out.
Yeah.
And that's just them trying to actually answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you can say, well, that's not what it really means, because when you interpret it spiritually, it means this. They can basically just make it up as they go along. It could mean anything.
Yeah,
I feel like with anything that they can't answer, like, oh, that's spiritual, just like the train to China.
Yeah.
Oh, that was spiritual. Like, just everything's spiritual.
Yeah, they do that a lot. That's a pretty common excuse they use. Spiritual.
Why is that important for your salvation?
Yeah,
that was the big thing. Why is that important to know? Why is that important to know? Does it have anything to do with your salvation?
Gosh.
Why is that important to know?
They would say
know that too well.
That reminds me of a meeting that I had with the pastor and my husband at the time, when, you know, this is when I didn't want to go, but I was going because my husband said, if you do the studies all over again with the pastor and you go to one service on the Saturday, then I'll stay in the house. Otherwise, he was going to leave. So I was there for one of the studies, and they let my husband study with me and the pastor only this time. And I asked the pastor at the end, I said, you know, I want to talk about what the Bible says about marriage and divorce. And he would not even approach the subject with me. And I'm like, well, why won't you tell me what the Bible says about marriage and divorce? And the pastor got really mad. And he was like, you know what difference does it make if you're both going to die? Like, what difference does it make if you stay married or you get divorced if you're both going to die? So I'm just like, okay, but that's not what I asked you. I asked you, what does the Bible say about marriage and divorce? And you're refusing to answer the question. You know, like, so it was insane. They pick and choose what's important, you know. It just
they pick and choose.
Michelle, were you asking him that because you couldn't read the Bible on your own, or did you already know what the Bible said about marriage and divorce?
I knew what the Bible said, but I felt like the church wasn't, I don't want to say focused, but they weren't taking that into consideration when they were causing problems between my husband and I, you know, or when they were like encouraging other people to divorce and to separate. And, you know, the Bible says that the non-believer is sanctified by the believing spouse, right? So what difference does it make that I don't want to come here anymore? If my husband is here and he's, you know, all for it, then why are they so concerned about, you know, him staying with me or not staying with me, if that's what the Bible says? So I felt like they weren't really following the Bible the way they claimed to. So that's why I was asking the pastor about it. And he wouldn't discuss the topic with me, because I said to him, I said, you know, you guys focus a lot on the Passover being the covenant that we have with God. Well, what about marriage as a covenant also? And
You're
again,
right.
well, what difference does it make if you're both gonna die? And I was just like, okay, never mind. Like it just wasn't going to be there.
And for
You're cutting out.
But Chelsea is
Yeah.
saying at all.
And for a church that says, you know, that we follow the Bible exactly, to, like you said, pick and choose. I'll type in the comments.
No, we hear you. We hear you now.
Oh,
We hear you
I
now.
can hear you now.
The thing is, I stopped talking like 2 minutes ago, but
We heard
Go
you
ahead.
say pick and choose. Go.
Go ahead.
okay, I put it in the comments. I put it
For a
in the
church that
comments.
says
I
they
said
follow
for a
the Bible
church
exactly,
that says they follow the Bible exactly, they pick and choose,
Okay, she
like
sounds
you
like a robot
said.
again.
Like, you know,
Yes.
they say, oh, we need to keep the
But yeah, we get what you're saying. We get we get your gif. So
Claim that they're the only church that follows the Bible.
yeah, that's what they preach, right? That they say
Yeah.
that's their big saying. You know, we follow the Bible 100%.
Well, maybe not so much.
You know, I think I posted a video on my Instagram about a man by Dr. James White, who is a teacher on Hebrew and Greek. And he pretty much breaks down the word Elohim in Genesis chapter 1. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, let me just take this one clip, like a minute, I think. And I shared it. And for a church that claims to know about the Bible, I don't know if anyone within the church actually knows Hebrew and Greek to know that when the word Elohim it follows up with God, it's always non-plural. It's always one. It's not two. And so I had to post it. I had to share it. I had to just see what the feedback would be from that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, from my experience, from what I was always told, is that when the overseers or like missionaries or pastoral staff would go to Korea, they would study Greek and Hebrew. That was a big thing that they said that they were taught. They would study Greek and Hebrew. So that, of course, led us to believe that, you know, they're experts. They're experts in the language, you know, in translations and stuff like that. But yeah, they're completely wrong.
Yeah.
They lied again.
Yeah. Again.
I mean, anyone can say they studied Hebrew and Greek. Like, anyone can say that. That's like an argument out of authority. The moment they say that, at that point, you feel like you have to be like quiet, because now they have like they one up you now.
Yeah, it's like Kelsey's saying in the comments that when Korea is teaching Hebrew and Greek, they don't even really teach English.
Can't even teach English.
That's a really good point. But yeah, they messed that Elohim up. And if I'm not remembering correctly, that last audio sermon that we heard from An Sung Hong, wasn't he talking about Genesis 1:26, where it said God created us and all that? He didn't mention anything about it being God plural or there being a mother God. You guys know what recording I'm talking about?
I think I've seen it. I didn't listen to it.
I think I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, so that would have been a good time for him to mention, oh, by the way, God that created us, there's two of them. One's male and one's female. He doesn't do that. So I thought that was interesting. I kept waiting for that part, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys a question. I'm sure you guys probably are familiar with the verse I'm going to I'm going to throw out. Isaiah 44:6-8, Isaiah 45:5. It says, I am God. I know nobody else. I'm the only God. Right?
Father and mother. That's how that's explained. That's how it's explained.
Even though he says, I'm first, last, I don't know of any other gods. I don't know anyone. And then he says, I'm the last person. I don't know anyone else. There's no competition against me. And then you go to Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. He says, I chose you. I formed you. There's no we formed you. It's I. It's singular. I mean,
They have it all messed up. They have it all screwed up. I mean, it's just the way that we were thinking when we were in the group. You could tell it from now, like, it was completely brainwashed. Complete control and brainwash.
Well, what they say is that the father and mother, that they're one. So when it says I, it's still they're still the same. They're still one together. So I mean,
that was their excuse.
So let me just share a quick story with you guys, for you recent members that just came out, just to kind of go back a bit. When I first went to church, and I'm sure Jordan knows this too, but we thought we couldn't die physically, because we were told Passover protected us physically. Mm-hmm. That was very clear. It's so clear that when I was on the plane going to Korea with Pastor John, I distinctly remember me telling him, I said, wow, Pastor, I said, I feel so safe on this plane. And he told me, he said, everyone on this plane can't die on this plane because we're on it. So he knew it was physical. Yeah, he knew. He told me it was physical death. We all believed in the church physically we could not die.
I'm sorry.
Until let me just finish this part, because Jordan knows this. Until we had a couple of people in our church actually physically die.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And one of them was Deaconess Turk. You know Deaconess Turk.
Yep.
And then prior to her dying, my fruit died. I brought this girl. Do you remember? What was her name? Shauna. And
I do remember Shauna.
Yeah, she was Asian, and she got ran over by a bus.
Yeah, I do remember. I do remember that.
So that was on the day of that was Resurrection Day, or the Feast of Unleavened Bread, one of them.
Yeah.
And I remember my sister Tammy got a phone call from her husband that she wasn't there, and we were worried about her. And we got a phone call that from her husband, that she got killed. And we went and talked to Pastor John. We went and told him first. We were all outside gathering. That was Resurrection Day. We were outside gathering. And Pastor John just looked at us, and then he was like, he looked struck too. And then we went and talked somewhere else, and it was me, Tammy, and him. And he started saying, I don't think she took the Passover bread. She couldn't have eaten the bread and drank the wine. So my sister Tammy was adamant. She said, Pastor, I was on the side of her. I watched her take the wine and eat the bread. And he said, no, she couldn't have. No, Deacon Ron, she didn't eat it. So he was starting to go around to all the people and kind of, plant that seed that she didn't take the Passover fully the way she was supposed to.
Right.
And it was just so weird. And that was
so
around 2010 or 9. It was right around there. And that's when I started really getting weirded out by the church.
Yeah, it was like 2009 when Deaconess Turk had passed away.
Yeah.
And it was she was going through chemotherapy, actually, because she had cancer. And the thing is about her is I was actually best friends with her son. You remember her son, Sarah Karn?
Of course.
I was best friends with him, and his mom was everything to him, everything. Yeah. Complete mama's boy. I mean, just the sweetest guy. And when she died, they did not have an explanation for him. Because, of course, at this point, I was about to go to high school. He's about a couple years younger than me. He was in shock. He didn't really talk about it much. I didn't really see much emotion from him. But it was pretty sad because he had no explanation.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was a tough time for sure, because we were all under the belief that we're just invincible because, we took the Passover. We took the bread and wine of Passover. No, he's not in anymore. Recently, what's pretty cool about it is I'm digressing a little bit, sorry, but I just reconnected with him probably a couple months ago. Sadly, his dad passed away as well. He wasn't in the church either.
Stanley.
Stanley. He passed a couple years ago, but right now he's on his own. But he's doing pretty good for himself. So, but I mean, it's just for any other person. It could have probably caused a lot of mental damage, losing your mom, especially for someone like that who was like an extreme, like he was a mama's boy. He loved his mom. Someone else could have went down a really dark hole, worst case scenario, talk about suicide and things like that. I mean, the type of mental stress that this church puts on people, not even being able to provide a concrete explanation of why, even though you took the Passover, still died. I mean, but.
And not only that, also, Jordan, just to touch base on one quick thing. I watched from 2009 to 2011 when I left, I watched the evolution of it wasn't physical because it happened in the church. It wasn't physical anymore, the death. The teaching became more about, you misunderstand if you think it's physical. It's spiritual death the Bible refers to. So the evolution took place while I was still in. With the last 2 years, I watched that evolution take place. And that's what they do. They change accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Can I also try to say something, and you guys let me know if I'm cutting out?
You're good. You're good.
Okay, cool. So when I was first baptized, they told that, the 144,000, we will go to heaven alive, right? And they didn't mention anything about a great multitude. And then suddenly, I want to say like around 2008, 2009 is when suddenly we started hearing about a great multitude. And then they started emphasizing that we don't know who exactly the 144,000 are within the church, but we should strive to be the 144,000. And they said the great multitude will face a physical death. So as members started, I didn't personally see that in Portland or Seattle, but I know it's happening in LA. As some members, they came to die. People, in order to offset the explanation that we won't die, their explanation became like, oh well, they're not part of the 144,000. Doesn't mean they're not going to heaven, but they're not part of the 144,000.
Yep.
What is that?
144,000 are the best of the best who did everything perfectly and will go to heaven alive, not face physical death.
And the 144,000 are
God.
virgin males, by the way.
Oh well, they have an explanation for that too, but
it clearly says they're part of the 12 tribes. Nobody's there from Benjamin, right?
They have a study about that too.
They have a study about that. They say it's all spiritual. It's all spiritual.
Yep.
That's what they say.
And if it was really the Jewish people, then why are we even, here right now?
Why can't they give spiritual tithes then? How about that?
Right, and that was
not spiritual, they say.
Isn't there a verse, I believe in the same chapter or chapter 9 where it says that, and we saw a multitude of people of different language, different tongues in heaven. So the 144 is totally different from
that's the great multitude.
Yeah, the great multitude.
Yeah, we didn't learn about the great multitude when I first joined. It was only the 144,000. Mm-hmm. There was no focus on the great multitude at all because there wasn't 144,000 in the church yet. After that, when people died, then that's the evolution. They started teaching more about the great multitude. Those are the ones that physically died. That was the evolution I was talking about. Very strange.
You can't claim that they have so many million members, but only 144,000 of them are actually going to be saved. So there has to be something for everyone.
That's a very small fraction.
Yeah.
It is. And also, by the way, I was told by a deaconess that we were all in competition with each other for one of those 144,000 spots.
Yes.
Also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how would you really know if you're part of the 144,000?
You're not supposed to focus on that. You're just supposed to do what you're supposed to do, and then God will work it out.
Like a random tattoo in your arm that says you're.
No, we're not allowed to get tattoos.
So you should strive to be one of the 144, but then don't focus on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't focus on trying. Don't focus on that, but focus on it really. You have to do everything they say in order to be considered for it. But at the end of the day, it's already determined too. So.
I'm telling you that stresses you out, especially being a member, wondering if you're 144,000 or not. I mean, that just puts an insane amount of stress on some people.
And every time, there's something bad in the news, I'm sure they're doing this with the coronavirus, but anytime there's, earthquakes everywhere, school shootings everywhere, any kind of disaster, anything bad, they milk it to say, Father's coming so soon, and he can come even tonight. Then if he comes tonight, are you prepared? Are you thinking that you're able to stand before God saying, yes, I should go to heaven? No. So that's what they always do without missing a beat.
Yeah.
So let me show you guys a small little story, actually. I was walking from college back home, and I just so happened to walk through this church. And I said, man, I need an excuse to go inside this church. So I went to the back, and I knocked on the door. And I'm like, I really have to use the bathroom. My house is a mile and a half away. I can't wait. So she was very graceful. She allowed me in, and I went to use the bathroom. The place looked really nice inside. And right afterwards, she said, she was something about oh, do you know about us? And I was like, I really don't know about you guys, but I know you guys have a playground. That's all I know. And so she's like, well, and then a guy came by. They came by and they brought me downstairs. And I saw a lot of people down there. They all had like really formal uniforms and ties. And I remember the last time I ever wore a tie. And they brought me into a room, small little cubby room. And I sat down and they were asking me like, so why are you here? And I said, well, I had to go use the bathroom. But I said, while I'm at it, how about you guys just kind of like share with me your beliefs and I'll ask you a few questions. Now, I think when they were sharing me their stories and whatnot, on home, Korea, I said, so Jesus came back as this Korean man? I thought when Jesus ascended, the angel says, why are you guys looking at Jesus? He will arrive the same way he left. And then an Asian guy came in. He was an overseer. And he questioned me. He was like, so what are you doing here? Are you going to be part of our faith? Yes or no? And I said, well, can I at least ask a few questions? And he said, nope, you got to go, and kicked me right out. And I was like, well, that's not how you proselytize. So I just felt uncomfortable. I just knew, like, if the only way that I can be part of a church like this is to pretty much commit intellectual suicide, then no, I got to use my brain, my God-given brain, to make sense of it. And so
part of the problem, which is kind of good in a way, but not really, is that right now they're in hypersensitive mode. They think everyone that's coming in that wasn't invited in is somebody trying to do damage to the church.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a lot of like paranoia going on in the church about that, for sure.
Especially, I kind of want to segue into the 2012 thing. After Ronnie, after you left, after like Diane left, then they became like super hyper paranoid after that point. They had like security in the church, like with the own brothers was security, right? They had like the fancy earpiece and all that stuff. Like, it was that serious. They were super paranoid about random people coming in or quote unquote slanders. But yeah, just I want to talk about and get some of your thoughts and maybe some of your experiences on the whole 2012 thing, because it's a big thing in the church right now. They simply just say, oh, we never taught it. We never taught that the world was going to end in 2012. You know, like, what do you guys think about that?
My brother-in-law said it was a misunderstanding.
Oh,
yeah. Well, I can speak on that a bit. That was definitely taught. There's no doubt about it. I taught it myself because I learned the study, the 2,300 days and how it added all up and everything. But I don't know if you remember, Jordan. You probably do. You were old enough. Pastor Daniel Park.
Mm-hmm.
So he came back from Korea. He was in Korea for about a month and a half or 2 months. Remember, I was overseeing the church at that time.
Yep,
we were
I remember.
in the Sunland Church.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came back, he did a sermon. One of his first sermons was he came back because he went to go. We were in the Sunland Church. Yeah, not Sunland. We were in the Reseda Church.
We just got to Reseda.
Yeah, we just got to Reseda. And he came back and he said his visa was renewed for 5 years. And he said that Mother said, was it 5 years or 5 years? He said Mother said that his visa will be here longer than we will. So that gave us, I remember all of us in the service were like, after service, we were like, oh my God, he just told us pretty much that we're going to heaven soon.
Yeah.
And that landed us, like he said, even before 2012. So, because it could happen, it didn't have to happen on 2012.
Exactly.
But 2012 was the absolute last day.
Yeah.
That was the last time we'd be here. So yeah, he even said it in the service that we wouldn't be here. Everyone heard it. And it's kind of hard after when it doesn't happen. All the people that heard it, it's kind of strange why people don't come out at that moment. I don't know. I never understood that.
Yeah, another example, it was 2012 Ascension Day. We were at the park, the same park we used to always go to, Ron, for Ascension Day. And Pastor John was praying, and he slipped it in his prayer. He mentioned on this last Ascension Day.
I remember that.
I opened my eyes and I'm like, hold on, is everyone else hearing this too? Because the 2012 thing wasn't really taught to like the fresh members, like to scare them off or anything like that. It was more taught to like the more experienced They're more experienced leaders. So I was really surprised when he said it in a prayer. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is it. I mean, I quit football. I quit playing football in high school. I was like all in. I was all in. I was like, yeah, let me try to preach to as many people as possible. I wasn't really even focusing on school as much either. You know, I had failing grades, you know, sad to say, but I mean, this is the type of impact that something like that can have on, you know, everyone in the church.
I think Chris Black told me about that. When he got out, he told me about that same situation. I was like, wow.
Yeah, he said it. He said it.
I was baptized in 2010, like the middle 2010. So I wasn't taught that study because I think I was a new member. But I remember after 2012, the deaconess did tell me that Father was supposed to come in 2012 because that's when Mother was 70. And like, I guess like, you know how they call Mother Jerusalem, and I guess like Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD, and she was trying to like explain it to me. And I remember at that time, I think Kelsey mentioned in the comments too, that they would make us like stock up on like water, flashlights, batteries, like just basically like if there's going to be a nuclear war happening, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if you had the same experience too.
Yeah, they told you to stock up on at least like 2 weeks to a month on like food. Long johns. That was a big thing. Long johns. Make sure you have long johns. That's what they said. Say that again.
It said Long John's in California. Were you guys?
I know, right? It's not. I mean,
look how we're doing now with the coronavirus. You could barely survive a week.
I know. They really pushed it on people. Like, yeah, make sure you're prepared. Like, you know, canned foods and all this stuff. And also, one important thing was they wanted to make sure that members were well equipped to be able to keep service by themselves. You know, so that was a big thing that we were taught. Like right before 2012, that you have to make sure you have enough oil. You have enough oil in your lamp in order to be able to, you know, keep service by yourself and keep in the faith. And it was just all this stuff was being brought up right before 2012, and then right after 2013 hit. I mean, it was just awkward. It was just this really awkward feeling of just like we didn't really want to talk about it amongst each other, because it was obvious that nothing happened. But we just kind of moved on. I remember right before 2012 it ended, the whole sanctuary, like the whole sanctuary in LA Zion, which is not small, it would be like almost full of people trying to go like pair up and go in preaching teams to go out and recruit people, because after 2012, then I mean you're supposed to have fruit. You're supposed to have your fruit prepared and, you know, be able to present it to Father and Mother, you know. So it was a big fear mongering thing going on. I know people who just maxed out credit cards, sold their cars, quit their jobs, quit school.
401k.
Yep, empty 401ks, and just giving away stuff to the church, TVs. All this stuff was going on. And just after 2013, a flood of people left. A lot of people had left because, of course, they were, you know, and the church would try to say, oh, they were too focused on the date. They were too focused on the date.
Well, then don't give a date. Like, don't give a date then.
Exactly.
You would think they would have learned from the first two times.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, a very similar situation happened with like the Jehovah's Witness in 1914, when they claimed that Christ would come back on 1914. And so when 1914 happened, and then 1915 arrived, there was like, so where's Jesus? And they're like, I thought he was supposed to come back physical. He's like, no, he came back spiritually.
It's spiritual.
Yeah.
We should make a hashtag and just say it's spiritual.
Yeah.
That's like the go-to excuse for everything. If if you don't know how to explain it, it's spiritual.
Yeah.
I have a question. I know that you guys can like laugh all of this off now because you're like past it and everything, and it's like, woo, a load off. But do you ever think that with them making, you know, these kind of doomsday predictions, that they could ever do something a little bit more serious and like
Yes.
some other cults, like the Jonestown situation where people were just,
Mm.
committed suicide and that sort of thing?
Yes, I'm not saying that they are, because I don't, I'm just putting that out there. I'm not saying that they are those kind of people. I'm just saying I think not only them, but any group like this has a capability of reaching Jonestown State. Do you know what I'm saying? Is like
Yes.
I'm not trying to, because I know don't want to get sued. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that they would do that. I'm just saying any group technically has a capability of becoming like the Jim Jones cult, in that enough power. I mean, you said earlier today, right, that in the early days, Ronnie, the church wasn't as strict and didn't get as involved in people's lives, but now it's
Yeah.
like outrageous, right?
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
happens is that over time, power gets to the best of people, and it could, any kind of group has the ability of becoming like that, and that's what I think people need to realize.
Most
Yeah, I
definitely.
agree. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it. I've always, when I counsel people, even in the past, I've always said it's not that kind of a cult, but definitely anything's possible when you see something, evolve like it did. Anything's possible. And let's face it. It takes somebody really, really crazy and bold to proclaim themselves as God. I mean, you can pretend to be I've pretended to be a cop before when I was young, out at the clubs. But to pretend to be
Oh my
God,
God.
to pretend to be God is pretty crazy. So yeah, who knows?
And what's crazy about it is An Sung Hong, I don't even think he even ever thought that he was God. It's now the WMSCOG that's claiming him.
He never wrote it down.
Yeah, he never.
He consistently claimed in his books, and I know many of the members have not read, the books that are on the NCPCOG site, but they should, because they're written by the man they claim to be God, that they claim is God. But he never once said he is God. He didn't even say he was second coming Christ.
I don't think he was a bad. I don't think he was a bad guy.
No.
I really don't.
I think he would be
he was just a
shocked to
regular
see what's
minister.
being done in his name right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at pictures of him. He's chilling in the pool. He's having birthday cakes. He's chilling. Like he's not even like stressing about it right now. Like, but now
his
it's
best
like
life too.
Yeah, he was living his best life. But the way the church portrays it, it's like he was just
climbing mountains all the time to go preach to one person.
I just wanted to say something really quick about the groups being like Jim Jones and I forgot which other one, Waco, I guess someone mentioned. I've noticed, because I've watched a lot of documentaries and read a lot of books about those situations, that those incidents seem to happen when the leader is being attacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the leader, obviously, always a malignant narcissist. There has to be one or more at the top. When Jim Jones did that, he was like they were almost out to get him. They were almost about to pick him up, and he freaked out and became really paranoid, and that's when he had everybody commit suicide. And the Waco thing, David was his name, right? Koresh. When he became very paranoid and all this other stuff, and when he felt like it was really happening, that's when he flipped out, and that's when everyone did what he said and started shooting back and all this other stuff. So I feel like it's not the members and their potential. I think it's the leader's potential to become more and more paranoid and to just have like a complete psychotic break. And because those members believe that person is God and they do whatever they're told, that's where the danger comes.
I have a question.
Great point.
Does Mother God know she's being like worshipped?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
no way.
Does she believe that she's God? Like, do you think she really thinks
she doesn't say it
that she's God?
directly. She doesn't say it directly, but there's no way she doesn't know.
Yeah.
No.
One example.
People go to Korea.
Robot again.
Just cut that again.
See her in the
All right, she's cut that again. One example is that hold on, she's still talking.
People go to Korea to meet God in the flesh and then make a video.
Yeah, I mean, she has right next to her office. There's a plaque right next to her office titled Jerusalem Mother or Jerusalem. Yeah, so she knows.
Yeah, she knows. She knows.
She knows for sure.
Okay.
And she never, I mean, man, it's.
She does no miracles.
Yeah.
There's no type of affirmation to her godness. It's just this toss in the air type of thing. It's like, yeah, I'm God, but I can't do nothing. I don't even know your name. Gotta wear that name tag though for me to know
Or
your
speak
name.
English.
Don't speak
Or
English.
speak English.
Yet you created all languages, right? Hypothetically.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It doesn't.
She
I
can't
don't
speak
get it.
during her own services, from what I hear.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's weird that she never really ever says, she never really proclaims that she is God. It's kind of weird how it is. For those of you that were members, in her sermon videos, she never really says that she's God, but she kind of throws it subtly here and there. And she always refers to An Sang Hong as Father An Sang Hong. She never says my husband or anything like that. So it's kind of weird in a sense that she never really proclaims herself as God, but she's very well aware. You know, some of us former members, we've even had to purchase gifts for her. You know, we've had to give our own money, you know, to purchase some nice, you know, diamond necklace or whatever it may be, a new handbook with those Korean dresses, whatever it may be. So I mean, she knows.
I need
She
the
knows for
diamond
sure.
necklace, Jordan.
Man, gotta have that bling.
Better buy it for her.
Again, that's just so
We
not
did.
following
We did.
anything Christ-like.
Yeah.
No, that's gross.
There's I don't know, help me, Josue, where it is in the Bible where a man comes to Jesus and he asks Jesus, he begs Jesus to follow him. And Jesus tells him, get rid of all of your possessions.
all your belongings and follow
all your
me.
belongings
As a
and
rich
follow
man,
me.
yeah.
And as the rich man, and he couldn't do it because it's the rich that are the hardest. So
Yeah.
Personal driver.
She's going robot
Well,
again.
Professor Hawkins?
Type it. Type it.
Stephen Hawking's.
Stephen Hawking.
Is that Professor Hawkins?
Well, she said this. She said, all right, they say An Sang Hong and Zhang never said that they are God because then we can go around saying we are God. That's what I was told.
What?
Oh, and they probably quote Philippians where it says that when Jesus says that he took no title or no power on himself, he came as a servant. So there's probably some twisting of scripture there too. I don't know.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Look for anyone
They
who's
will
still
now because of you, Josue. Thank you.
listen. For anyone who's out there still working on getting somebody out. For anyone who's out there still working on getting somebody out, just remember, look for opportunities because there's always opportunities. Throughout my entire time there was times I questioned and there was things that made me question. So keep looking for those opportunities for anyone who's still looking to get somebody out because there are opportunities. There was so many opportunities that if someone had approached me at a certain time in my so-called faith, I might have listened a little bit more.
For sure. I see what Kelsey's saying now. So An and Zangyo-ja, the reason why they spoke the way they did is because they're supposed to set an example for their followers, their children. So the reason why mother, says Father An Sang Hong and sing, praise to him and all this stuff, like just set an example for their children, if you guys know what I mean.
well, the problem with that is in the church, they separate men and women. And when I ask, why do they, because I'm not a member, but I ask a lot of questions. I asked, why do they separate men and women? I was told that women have roles and men have roles. I said, okay, what are some of the roles that men and women have? Well, women, they may collect the money. Men don't collect the money. I said, well, why don't men collect the money? Well, they just don't, because that's not their role. They can't preach or they can't do sermons. I said, women can't do sermons? Yes, women can't do sermons. I said, well, who said women can't do sermons? God. God said that. I said, now you sure? And I know where it says it in the Bible, but I just wanted to make sure. You sure God said that? Yes, God said women cannot give sermons. I said, but then you have a mother God. But you have a mother God. that give sermons though. Oh no. But so why can't women give sermons then? If God is setting the example, she gives
Right.
sermons. Why can't
Right.
women give sermons?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, great point, Patty.
Yeah.
A lot of things they contradict. It just contradicts themselves. Like whatever they say, it just comes back around to contradict.
Yeah.
Hey, so what's
their original
the deal
teaching.
with the church only having Koreans as pastors?
Oh, that's always how it's going to be, because the pastors get together in a general assembly, and from what I understood, they go over kind of detail things, and it's always in Korean, and it's always Korean pastor. I don't think there'll ever be outside of Korean a pastor because of the structure.
Yeah, I
of
was specifically told that only Koreans can be pastors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were so surprised when they made you missionary, Ronnie.
Yeah, I know.
You're like
I
the
know.
first white missionary that was in the church.
I know. So weird. I wouldn't have gone any further.
Yeah, you hit the ceiling. but yeah, I mean,
okay, I see what you're saying, Kelsey.
Yeah, they all hold on, what is Kelsey saying? Only Koreans can be. Oh yeah, because they speak Korean, obvious. Yeah, yeah. I know for a fact that when I was there, Pastor John, he would contact Mother a couple times a week, on the phone. They'll be talk. They provide reports to the General Assembly and to Mother. So that's what I guess that's why the only Koreans can be pastors. I mean, that's the only reason. That's a dumb reason.
Well,
I mean, you could easily translate.
No, it's actually, but actually, it's their bloodline, because according to the 3 tribes, it's the Koreans from Abraham's family. They showed us a study actually that it was the Koreans. It was the Asian culture that was. I think they represented Shem. Shem or Japheth, I forget which one. I think it was Shem.
And then that's where you get into racism in the church.
Yep.
I mean, they
And
try
they
to
believe
deflect.
that.
Yeah,
they believe it.
Well, they would try to teach us Korean manners, like bowing and other things like that, and say that that's the heavenly ways, the heavenly customs.
That to me just sounds completely foolish, because when Jesus rose from the dead, Mary ran to him and gave him a hug, and that's when he says, don't hug me, not because he didn't love his mother or because that wasn't a custom, but because he had a duty he had to do. But nonetheless, Mary still hugged Jesus. She didn't bow to Jesus, like monk.
The heavenly culture. I mean, Jesus should have been bowing 2,000 years ago.
He should have been bowing down. Hey guys, I only have like 7 minutes, so
yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here in a little bit.
Okay.
Did you guys want to bring up anything else? Any other questions? Any short topics we could bring up? Or
are you gonna save the abortion section for like next time?
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. We're gonna save for next time. I believe next time we're gonna have Raymond come join on for that one. He has a lot of information about that, from when he was in the church. So I guess that's about it. I mean, any closing thoughts with you guys? Or
Yeah, I have one actually. You have one here: divorce and arranged marriages. I just want to throw out a thought on that. Is it a possibility that maybe the church uses Americans to marry Koreans so they can get their citizenship?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, of course not. No, just kidding.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a definite.
That's a definite yes. And I've seen countless situations like that. I mean, they cannot deny that. They can't deny that at all.
I've seen many people like denied marriage, like even if they were couples that came together to the church and they loved each other and they've been together for a while. If they want to get married, they're like, no, you had to wait till you're arranged a marriage.
Yeah,
I've seen it so many times.
Jordan, do you remember? Jordan, was Justin still there when after I left Justin? He married the Korean woman and they couldn't even communicate.
Yeah.
White Justin.
White Justin. Yeah, no, he's in Chicago right now. Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. And I remember
we had to translate. I would have to go and sit with him to translate, and then Deaconess Judy and we'd have to translate because him and his wife couldn't talk at all. So yeah, it's pretty much for a green card because there was nothing else there.
Yeah, I witnessed that myself. Yeah, I remember because she couldn't speak a lick of English, dude.
No, none. Zero.
I just want to clarify too. I want to get like a definite answer on this, on whether it's a sin or not in terms of Church of God for a member to marry someone that is not a member or outside of the church.
Not that I know of.
It's definitely looked down upon. It's definitely looked down upon, and it's not necessarily a sin. I don't think they want to take it that far. But I've seen, again, since I was in for so long, I've seen many situations where someone is married outside of the church, and it's definitely looked down upon, for sure. Yeah.
Like, especially if like they choose to get married with someone outside the church after they've been in the church, they'll talk bad about them behind their backs and say they have weak faith and like they don't truly believe in father and mother or have like 100% faith in them.
Yeah, and also, Kelsey mentioned, let's say if someone did marry outside the church, then they would lose specific like blessings and responsibilities and stuff like that. Let's say if you were like a unit leader or a group leader or something like that, they would demote you most likely, for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? You guys?
Yeah, just really quick. What you just said. Like when you do something that they don't like, they demote you. It's like they're punishing you, like if you were a child.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to take. I'm taking away your game privileges, or I'm taking away your phone, or whatever it is to teach you a lesson. You know, that kind of like retaliation that they
like a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It really is.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
All right, guys. With that, I mean, I'm very thankful you guys came on today. This was
Thank you.
This is a very great great chat, you know, amongst one another. I wanna maybe have something like this again, maybe next week with Raymond on, you know, with a lot of information that he has as well. So if you guys want to join in on that one, feel free. But for you viewers watching, just please understand, like, this is coming from our like experience, our genuine experience, and everyone here can attest to that. Everyone can attest to that. This is coming from our genuine experience. We're not trying to fake anything. We're not trying to lie about anything. We've all been in different parts of the states, and we've gone through the exact same thing. So just keep that in mind when while you've watched this video, and going forward, maybe try to do some more research about this church. And again, a couple of outlets, you know, examining the WMSCOG website. That was a great website for myself to do my research. I'm on Instagram, questioning the WMSCOG. Another great thing, you know, social media tool that is being used to question, you know, things about this church. So just want to encourage you viewers out there that are watching, whether you're a former member or that is having trouble, or a current member that is, you know, maybe trying to leave, or maybe this is your first video that you're watching, you know, doing your research. But yeah, just encourage you to just know that everything that we've said here tonight, it's just coming from just genuine and authentic experience. So with that, I'll end this meeting. You guys have a good one.
You too.
Guys for
Nice
joining.
job, Jordan. Nice job putting this together.
Thanks, Jordan.
Nice seeing everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right.